Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is Daily Drop number 173. Tonight, we're going to talk a little bit about Darren Indyke and his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. We have an article from back in August of 2019 that explores the depths of these two and their relationship that they had with one another. Jeffrey Epstein and Darren Indyke were very, very close, and Darren Indyke has been with Jeffrey Epstein for a very, very long time. Now, we're all familiar with Darren Indyke because he's one of the executors of Epstein's estate. So I thought that this article would give us a little bit more context on just who is Darren Indyke and what his role was with Jeffrey Epstein throughout the years. And it is obviously a situation that deserves some more scrutiny. And it really makes me wonder how Indyke is even allowed to be the executor of this estate, considering his close ties to Jeffrey Epstein and his alleged participation within the criminal enterprise. So this article is from Yahoo Finance. And the headline is, Jeffrey Epstein's lawyers deeply involved in his business dealings for decades, documents show. The article was written by Julia LaRoche, Arthi Swaminathan, sorry buddy, I just destroyed your name, and Calder McHugh. The article was written on August 13th, 2019. Dead men tell no tales, but their friends and business associates might. In the aftermath of convicted sex offender, pedophile, and accused sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein's apparent suicide in a Manhattan jail, allegedly, the focus has shifted to his inner circle in a scramble to uncover how exactly the multimillionaire made his money, the extent of his crimes, and who participated in his alleged misdeeds. Well, we've had a kind of a big picture of that painted for us since the time of this article, and we know about his inner circle, and we know the people who were very close to him, and we know the people that were operating in the background. Well, we're going to learn a little bit more about those people in this article, at least some of them. One of those in the 66-year-old's inner circle, L Brand CEO, ex-L Brand CEO, by the way, folks. That's something to cheer about, right? A little bit of good news, at least, when we need some of that, because knowing that Les Wexner is no longer the CEO is definitely welcome news. Whose vast wealth Epstein managed has reportedly been handing over documents to the authorities claiming Epstein misappropriated funds. We talked about that when it happened, and again a few other times. I don't buy it. I really don't buy that Jeffrey Epstein stole money from the Wexners. I don't believe that for 1 second. And if he did steal money from them, why did they wait all of those years to report those funds being stolen? The only time they reported those funds is when Wexner was trying to make a clean break, supposedly, from Epstein, and he wanted to use that as cover. So I've never believed that Epstein stole that money from the Wexners. I don't think he stole that money at all, and I believe that the Wexners just used that as kind of their alibi. Well, see, he stole money from us, so we weren't friendly with him. When in reality, we know that they were very, very close. Meanwhile, Epstein's longtime corporate attorneys, Darren Indyke and Jeffrey Shantz, have hired criminal defense attorneys, according to the New York Times. Now, why would his attorneys need to hire attorneys for themselves if they were not involved with the criminal enterprise, if they were not involved with covering it up, if they were not involved in misdirecting people so they didn't understand what Epstein was up to? A Yahoo Finance investigation reveals Indyke's and Shantz's deep involvement in Epstein's business transactions and their personal relationships with the disgraced financier, pedophile. Our findings suggest that Epstein was by far the lawyer's biggest client. In fact, we were unable to find records of their work with any clients other than Epstein or his associates. Indyke's signature in particular spans across numerous filings involving Epstein's foundations, trusts, entities, and business dealings. This is like the lawyers that are on retainer for the mafia. This is like Tom Hagen, right? Tom Hagen had one client, and that was Don Corleone and all of Don Corleone's associates. It's the same thing here. Indyke was obviously on retainer. He was obviously only working for Epstein and for Epstein's criminal associates. And the reason that he was doing that is because he was Epstein's trusted guy. Epstein knew that Indyke was not only a lawyer that was willing to toe the line, but Indyke was also involved with Jeffrey Epstein's other criminal activity. In my opinion, obviously, but that's what it certainly looks like here. Indyke knew that he had to insulate himself, and because of the scrutiny the second time around, Indyke and his partner here had to get their own legal counsel. In Darren Keith Indyke's 1982 senior yearbook, he wrote that in the year 2002, he would be performing his first case for the Supreme Court, quoting Al Pacino. Instead, Indyke, who went on to graduate from Cornell Law School, was filing paperwork for Epstein. Indyke, a 54-year-old Long Island native, has been by Epstein's side since at least 1995, according to public records. Indyke's name appears on charitable filings, real estate records, trademark filings, and other business matters related to Epstein and his inner circle. This man was facilitating all of the legal decisions for Jeffrey Epstein's inner circle. Darren Indyke was like the in-house lawyer, right? He was the guy that they would run all of the questions by, make sure that, they were finding the proper loopholes, etc., etc. And then when Epstein was in trouble, obviously, well, Indyke wasn't capable of handling that kind of case, so they had to build that dream team of lawyers with Kenneth Starr and Dershowitz, etc., etc. So Indyke, what it looks like to me, was the in-house counsel, basically. The guy that was always there, the guy that was always around, the most trusted of their lawyers. The lawyer that they knew that they could go to with their criminality and their involvement in whatever sort of money laundering, etc., and know that Indyke was going to be an ally. They know that Indyke could keep his mouth shut. And they know that Indyke was probably in on some of these ill-gotten gains as well. He has also done work for Wexner and for the British socialite. No, not British socialite. That's not how she should be labeled. Co-conspirator Ghislaine Maxwell, who has been accused in civil lawsuits of enabling Epstein's exploitation of young girls. She has not been criminally charged and denies wrongdoing. Indyke also signed a deed that certified the sale of a Palm Beach home that had belonged to the late Arnold Paul Prosperi, an associate of Epstein's who visited him frequently in jail. Now, why would Les Wexner need to have Darren Indyke do work for him? Why would Paul Prosperi have Darren Indyke doing work for him? Why would Ghislaine Maxwell have Indyke doing work for him? He's not some high-profile lawyer. He's not some high-profile guy. In my opinion, it's because he could keep his mouth shut. It's because they knew that their secrets were safe with him. The day Epstein went to jail in 2008, Indyke himself was there to visit. He visited his client at least 38 times over the 13-month period, according to jail logs. Charity work. The documents that bear Indyke's and Epstein's names speak to where the latter hoped to exert or build his influence on how Indyke helped Epstein to do so. Indyke has been involved with virtually all of Epstein's business dealings in the last 2 decades. His name appears as the treasurer and vice president of Epstein's 3 most prominent nonprofits, the COUQ Foundation, Gratitude America Ltd., and the J. Epstein Virgin Islands Foundation, also sometimes known as Enhanced Education. The latter 2 charitable giving organizations are registered in the U.S. Virgin Islands, while the COUQ Foundation, defunct since 2012, was based in New York State. Again, for the past 2 decades, Indyke, he has his signature on everything. He is very, very deeply involved with Jeffrey Epstein. This guy shouldn't be the executor of the estate, folks. Not by any stretch of the imagination. This guy should be an alleged accomplice of Jeffrey Epstein, a member of the criminal enterprise. How is this guy an executor of the estate? You know, as we all know, I am not a huge fan of Denise George, but I hope she brings the hammer down on these clowns. I hope she smashes Indyke with the hammer of the federal government, and I hope that he has to lawyer up and he has to answer some questions as well, because this guy who was involved in the whole entire criminal enterprise, obviously, from just the little bit that we've read here, how is this guy involved in trying to make the survivors whole? How is this guy involved in making sure that the survivors get the reparations that they deserve? This man should not be involved. This man should be answering his own questions at this point. Once again, Mr. Berman, what are you doing? The foundation's giving records show donations to colleges, research foundations, and art organizations. Other beneficiaries include the Clinton Foundation, Friends of the Israel Defense Forces, and the Edge Foundation, an educational research organization that recently scrubbed Epstein from its website. And we all know the Edge conferences he was involved in. All of these people think we're stupid. All of these people, they truly believe that nobody's going to do the research, that no one's going to do no one's going to dig deep, and nobody's going to find out all of their secrets. Well, they're wrong, okay? They're very, 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 very much wrong. I talked the other night about the involvement of Clinton with Jeffrey Epstein and how it is so much more than is being let on, so much more than is being reported. And I don't have an answer for why the legacy media is not going after the Clinton angle of this story. I don't have that answer for you. You'll have to ask them. All I can tell you is this. Bill Clinton and Jeffrey Epstein were as thick as thieves. These guys were super tight. Not just some passing business relationship, not guys that were just hanging out in the same circle. No, nothing like that at all. They were tight. They were very good friends. And Ghislaine, don't even get me started on Ghislaine. Ghislaine was very close to the Clintons. I mean, weddings, vacations, you name it. So the Clintons really have a lot to answer for when it comes to the Jeffrey Epstein situation. And instead of firing off ridiculous tweets, Hillary Clinton should be answering questions about her relationship with Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein. But, of course, the legacy media doesn't have the courage for any of that. They might lose access to their friend Hill if they ask the hard questions, just like they were scared to run the Robach interview with Virginia Roberts because, they might lose access to the royals. It makes me want to vomit. All of it is vomit-inducing. Indyke was listed as the treasurer of Gratitude America, which received a $10 million donation from an entity tied to a private equity billionaire, Leon Black of Apollo Management, according to a 990 form. And Leon Black is another one. Don't think he's escaped my scrutiny. Don't think for a minute that Leon Black isn't, in the queue to get himself a closer look on the podcast the same way the rest of these clowns have gotten their closer look, because that is definitely coming. In March 2015, then New York Attorney General Eric Schneiderman's Charity Bureau was reportedly looking into whether Epstein's foundation was meeting state registration requirements. It's not clear whether anything came of the inquiry, and Schneiderman himself resigned in 2018 following claims that he had assaulted several women. Now, mind you, folks, okay? Eric Schneiderman was the New York Attorney General, okay? The man in charge of the whole entire shebang. The man that survivors would go to and look for to prosecute the people that hurt them. Meanwhile, he has claims that he assaulted several women at the same time. So this is the guy that's going to that we could have counted on to go after Jeffrey Epstein. This is the guy that Virginia Roberts or Annie Farmer or Maria Farmer was going to depend on to make sure that Jeffrey Epstein faced justice? Of course not, because this guy is just as sick as Jeffrey Epstein, obviously, right? Another guy has no problem assaulting people in a powerful position and thinks that it's okay to do whatever he wants. Well, you're wrong, Mr. Schneiderman, and you're right there in the same category as the rest of these scumbags who use their power to make other people feel less or to abuse other people. That those people that do that, the people in power that do that, they all need to suffer the same fate as people like Schneiderman or Epstein. They must be ridiculed and chased out of their jobs, and they must never be allowed back in polite society. And if their actions constitute a crime, they must be charged to the fullest extent of the law. Nothing else is acceptable anymore. Personal relationships. As Epstein's life began to unravel a decade ago, Indyke remained by his side. The trustworthy Tom Hagen in-house attorney, did you think he was going anywhere else? Indyke knew that at the end of the day, he was going to continue to wet his beak no matter what happened with Epstein. In March 2005, a then 14-year-old girl and her parents claimed that Epstein sexually abused her at his Palm Beach, Florida mansion. Other teen girls made similar accusations against Epstein, and he ultimately agreed to plead guilty to soliciting prostitution from a minor and to register as a sex offender. He ultimately agreed, huh? He agreed to plead guilty. Isn't that nice? There should have been no agreement at all. He should have been compelled to talk about what happened. He should have been compelled to do it. No agreements for people like Epstein. No agreements with people who are involved in human trafficking. No deals for people that hurt children. And certainly no deals for anyone involved in a criminal enterprise at this level. As part of a controversially lenient non-prosecution agreement he signed with the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of Florida in September 2007, he also agreed to a 30-month sentence, including 18 months of jail time and 12 months of community control. In exchange, the U.S. Attorney's Office did not pursue federal charges. Imagine that, huh? The federal government, who loves to kick in doors, who loves to seize people's homes, who loves to seize people's bank accounts, kicked it down to the state level so the state feds could get the rap, so the state authorities could prosecute so they could get the joy. Why would the feds do that? Ask yourselves that, folks. And then look around at all the other cases that we see, high-profile cases, and see how often the feds kick a case down to the state level. Very rare for something like this, okay? Very rare. Epstein only served 13 months in the Palm Beach County Stockade, where he occupied a private wing and had liberal work release privileges of 12 hours per day, 6 days per week. Imagine that, huh? What he was accused of. This guy was able to have those sort of liberal privileges. He was able to be on work release. He was able to go out and possibly abuse and hurt other people, intimidate witnesses, etc., etc. Meanwhile, you get caught with a bag of dope. Forget it, bro. They're going to try and throw you underneath the jail. Never mind being a human trafficker or a sex offender or something like that. Normal people, forget it. You have zero chance to get any kind of sweetheart deal. You're lucky you get to see the judge within 3 months. Meanwhile, Jeffrey Epstein, they call him while he's in Paris. Hey, look, man, we're going to have to arrest you. I'm sorry about that, but let's set it up so we don't even have to perp walk you. Is there any footage of Jeffrey Epstein getting perp walked? I wonder why. Why didn't Epstein get the perp walk? Why didn't he get the treatment? Indyke's signature appears on the work release program agreement as Epstein's employer, according to the document reviewed by Yahoo Finance. Further requests for documents, including the required letter of employment specified as part of the work release agreement, were denied because of an active criminal investigation. we've talked about this as well. That's how they do it. They'll say, oh, there's an active investigation going on, so we can't provide you with that information. We're sorry about that. And that's how they muck shit up. That's how they obfuscate. That's how they keep everything hidden behind their curtains of secrecy. And we see it over and over and over again with the Department of Justice. And I don't know how many times and how much more vocal I have to be about how broken things are and how destructive the two-tier justice system is and how the Department of Justice itself is absolutely and utterly inept. I don't know how many more times I have to say it, but how many, just look at it. Just look at what's going on here. Just look at how a guy like Jeffrey Epstein was able to get off. How a guy like Indyke, whose signature appears all over the work release program paperwork, is not in trouble when we've heard the rumors of Jeffrey Epstein abusing girls while he was out on work release. So wouldn't that make Indyke directly responsible for him? Isn't that what that paperwork means, or is that only when it's normal people like you and I? For his work release, Epstein worked at the Florida Science Foundation, his not-for-profit that said it aimed to finance scientific research on academic, organizational, and individual levels, according to the organization's Articles of Incorporation. Records show that Indyke registered the Florida Science Foundation in November 2007, just after he signed the non-prosecution agreement. Epstein paid the Palm Beach Sheriff's Office $128,000 between 2008 and 2009 through the Florida Science Foundation, according to WPTV5, citing public records. Yahoo Finance's request for those documents was unsuccessful. A spokeswoman for the sheriff's office said they were part of an active and ongoing criminal and internal investigation. Of course they are. Again, we hear that excuse. It's just like the enablers who say, oh, we didn't know. We had no idea who Jeffrey Epstein was or what he was up to. Don't blame us. It's the same shit. The Florida Science Foundation dissolved on September 25, 2009, after failing to file an annual report, records show. And again, Indyke's name is all over this. How is Darren Indyke not under more scrutiny? How is this not a bigger name in the case? How is this not somebody who has been talked about ad nauseum at this point? Indyke has never been a reliable person, a reliable player in this case. He has no business being the executor of the estate. And the fact that he is still finding ways to try and deny the survivors their just due, it makes my head spin in anger, like the girl from The Exorcist almost. That's how I feel. Is this guy for real? And is the justice system going to allow it? I mean, of course I want to sit here and say there's no way the justice system's going to allow it. They're going to stop it. They're going to make sure everybody pays. But I'll tell you what, the track record of the Department of Justice and the SDNY in the last, 10 years, 15 years at least, is not very good. And it doesn't inspire confidence in me. So, again, I'm very skeptical that they're going to pursue this the correct way until they start doing the right thing. Until they start kicking in doors, until they start swooping people up, until they start grabbing people who were involved in this case and showing them the inside of an interrogation room. Until any of that happens, I have zero faith in the Department of Justice led by Bill Barr or the SDNY and Jeffrey Berman. While Epstein spent 13 months in the Palm Beach County stockade, Indyke made at least 38 visits to see him, according to a jail log. According to a 2010 deposition of Epstein's pilot, Larry Visosky, he believes it was Indyke who called him on the phone saying Epstein wanted him to visit the county jail. Indeed, Visosky made many visits shortly after Epstein began his county jail sentence. Also, Larry Visosky owns a home on Jeffrey Epstein's Zorro Ranch. Conversely, his daughter was married at that home on Jeffrey Epstein's ranch. And I've kind of been chatting with somebody who has intimate knowledge of that whole entire event. And as soon as I get a little bit more time and get the whole story from that person, I'll definitely share it with you. But Look, Larry Vasosky is another guy who holds some secrets, right? He knows some secrets. He knows where some bodies are buried. You're not, living on the Zorro Ranch, having a home on the Zorro Ranch where Jeffrey Epstein craves his privacy. If you're not a trusted member of the posse, right? If you're not down with the program, you're certainly not going to get a house on this property. So Larry Vasosky is somebody that definitely needs to be talked about a little bit more as well. And you see, again, folks, as much as we're here talking about these stories and how much we talk about the case, there are still things that we have to add to the catalog on a daily basis. So I'm kind of glad that the daily news is slowed down a little bit, because it gives us a little bit more time to go back and add some more context to the things that we already know. And what it does, it gives you a better idea of what the big picture is, what the long game is. And that's what we're in it for, right? We're in it for the long game. We're looking at the long game right now, because we can't worry about, oh, well, things are stalled out right now, or Berman isn't, moving his feet. That they're going to do whatever they got to do. We can't control that. All we can do is continue to talk about this story. All we can do is continue to push this story into the face of everybody around us. And all we can do is make sure that these survivors are having their story heard, because we can't count on the legacy media to do that. We can't count on the outlets to do that. It's up to us, the people who have taken it upon ourselves to dive into this case and to make sure that this never, ever happens again. Upon release, Epstein copied Indyke on emails pertaining to his status as a sex offender. Emails produced by his defense team showed Epstein copied Indyke on 4 email messages sent between July 2012 and July 2015 to a detective in New Mexico while spending time at his Zorro Ranch vacation home. That's interesting. That's very interesting. I'd like to know who that detective was. I'm going to have to do a little more research into that and see why he was sending those emails to the detective. I guess it has something to do with his status as a sex offender and the fact that he didn't have to register in New Mexico. So I'm guessing that that's what that has to do with, but I am not certain of that, so I'd have to look a little bit deeper into what that was about. In October 2015, Indyke was also present via phone on behalf of Epstein during the deposition of high-profile lawyer and Harvard law professor Alan "I kept my underpants on" Dershowitz, who had been accused in a civil lawsuit of having sex with an underage girl who was also abused by Epstein. Dershowitz has denied her accusations, and we know that is Virginia Roberts at this point. Indyke and Epstein's inner circle. During Indyke's 20-plus years with Epstein, he has also been connected with other associates of the now-deceased pedophile. He's on documents connected to Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's former girlfriend and co-conspirator, as well as Les Wexner, the L Brand's ex-CEO, whose money Epstein managed. Indyke also has been tied to Leslie Groff, member of the Core Four, a longtime Epstein assistant, as well as Arnold Paul Prosperi, a disbarred attorney who visited Epstein multiple times in jail. And again, Paul Prosperi is another big-time buddy of Bill Clinton, another tie of Bill Clinton, another middleman of Bill Clinton's. If Bill Clinton was sending somebody to talk to Jeffrey Epstein, Prosperi would definitely fit that bill. Right along with another one of a close associate of Clinton's, Doug Band. Now, these are the people that have always acted as intermediaries for Bill Clinton. Now, Paul Prosperi is not a very honorable guy, obviously, but when did that matter to Bill Clinton? Bill Clinton didn't care about any of that stuff. Bill Clinton, all he cared about were having people around him that were going to help him consolidate his power and push whatever narrative that he needed to push. And Prosperi and Band were perfectly suited for those jobs. And I would not be surprised if when Prosperi was there talking to Epstein, it wasn't have something to do with Bill Clinton, or at the very least, if Bill Clinton, didn't know about it. Do I have evidence to prove that? Of course I don't. But it's kind of strange, huh? Someone, Paul Prosperi, who is such a good friend of Bill Clinton's, was going to visit Epstein so many times. I wonder how they met. Did Prosperi get introduced to Epstein via Clinton? These are all questions that we don't have answers to yet, and why it's so important that every time we get articles that we try and dig a little deeper than just the surface. Indyke's name appears as a trustee on Maxwell's nonprofit, the Max Foundation, which made small donations from 2002 to 2010, but has been largely dormant in recent years. Another slush fund, another way for them to embezzle. Another way for them to launder money. You know what? They need 75 charities, all these different charities, sending money all over the place, probably sending money to each other. And they think we're not going to think it's. They think we're going to believe them if they say it's not. They weren't involved in money laundering. Come on, stop it. It's obvious that they were involved in all sorts of crazy financial deals. The authorities were onto them for that as well. Separately, Indyke also helped Maxwell buy a 7,000 square foot townhouse at 116 East 65th Street in 2000, according to New York City property records. The New York Times reports that the townhouse was bought for $4.95 million by an anonymous limited liability company, 116 East 65th Street, LLC, that shared an address with Jeffrey Epstein and Company. Oh, just another coincidence, folks. Another coincidence. Don't look deeper. How dare you look deeper? Don't look behind that curtain. You're a conspiracy theorist. Don't you know that? How dare you want answers in this case? How dare you not believe the narrative? How many more coincidences do they think we're going to believe in this? I mean, come on. Come on already. Indyke also used a 10th floor unit in a building owned by Epstein as his primary office at 301 East 66th for nearly a decade, a Business Insider report stated, citing court records and attorney registration files. Of course, he had to be close to Jeffrey Epstein. He had to have access to Epstein, and Epstein had to have access to his most trusted legal confidant. The company, DKI PLLC, was later listed as the point of contact for Epstein's private foundation in 2008. I mean, come on. How is this even possible? Is this real life? How is this Indyke clown involved at all with what's going on in the Virgin Islands? This guy should be worried about getting fitted for an orange jumpsuit and a 6x10 cell. Never mind administering funds to people that were being abused by Jeffrey Epstein. And, well, maybe what was his role? What was Indyke's role besides just the lawyer? What did he see? What did he know? And of course he'll use attorney-client privilege. That's obvious, but there's ways around that, and well, you know what I'm going to say, right, folks? It all starts and ends with RICO. The lawyer's relationship also extended to Wexner. Indyke was listed as the secretary for the Wexner Foundation in a 1998 SEC filing. In 2008, Abigail Wexner, the billionaire's wife, also gave Indyke power of attorney over 15 Central Park West, according to the New York real estate records. Why? Why would a guy that has no other clients, no other big clients, works for no one but Jeffrey Epstein, why would he be employed by the Wexners? Why would the Wexners, who have all the money under the sun, be using a guy like Darren effing Indyke? I'll tell you why, folks. Because they were all part of the same insulated bubble. Epstein says to Wexner, I got the perfect guy for you to use. This guy keeps his mouth shut, and he already knows the score. In my opinion, that is how that all went down. Arnold Prosperi, a former lawyer who visited Epstein more than 20 times in jail, also appears to have connections to Indyke. After Prosperi died in 2016, property records show that Indyke signed off on a warranty deed that transferred ownership of Prosperi's South End lakefront home to Donna Ward for $5.6 million. Prosperi made the news in 2011 for having a prison sentence for embezzlement commuted to house arrest by his by his college friend, President Bill Clinton. In addition to Prosperi and Maxwell, Indyke has ties to Groff, a longtime Epstein assistant, accused in a civil lawsuit of making travel arrangements for underage girls who were abused by him. And we all know Leslie Groff, right? You definitely know who she is. She's part of the Core Four, one of Epstein's most trusted assistants, and another person that should definitely be getting ready for a nice long vacation, and I don't mean to college. Public records show that Indyke's law practice is called DKI PLLC, but his 575 Lexington Avenue address is a virtual office. There was no law office there, and the building is now home to a WeWork. Incidentally, a 2005 article in the New York Times about top bosses on Wall Street reported that Epstein paid for a full-time nanny for Groff so she could work for him after she had a baby. There is no way that I could lose Leslie to motherhood, Epstein said at the time. Yeah, of course, because he needed somebody to be silent. Who else is he going to bring in to help funnel young girls to him, to help schedule massages of underage girls at 3 at a clip? You have to have a very sick kind of person to do that, and Groff certainly fit the bill. Groff's attorney, Michael Bachner, has issued the following statement. Leslie Groff worked as an executive assistant in Jeffrey Epstein's business office, along with attorneys and other executives. Miss Groff never knowingly booked travel for anyone under the age of 18 and had no knowledge of the alleged illegal activity whatsoever. She is shocked and deeply distraught by the accusations and revelations concerning her former employer. So shocked and so deeply distraught that she hasn't come forward to volunteer what she knows. So distraught and deeply shocked that she still has her mouth shut. Yeah, I'm sure she's deeply distraught and in shock. More like in self-preservation mode. Subletting a government building. Lawyer Jeffrey A. Shantz, a 62-year-old Fordham University Law School graduate, does not appear to have been as intimately involved in Epstein's business practices as Indyke. Public records show that Shantz also worked for Epstein since 1995, but his name is on significantly fewer of Epstein's company's regulatory filings. So I'm guessing Shantz was somebody that they used as well, but he wasn't as deeply connected. He wasn't on the inside. He was somebody that they sent the legit work to. And when they needed, the darker stuff taken care of, Indyke was the man. The root of the 1996 lawsuit was an unorthodox real estate agreement between Epstein and the State Department. The State Department had seized an Upper East Side building from the Iranian government during that country's revolution, and later rented it to Epstein for $15,000 a month, according to the New York Daily News account of the dispute. Epstein had no ties to, the CIA or intelligence or anything like that. I mean, any one of us are going to get ourselves an Upper East Side building that used to be owned by the Iranian government leased to us. We all know about that. We know when those leasings hit the board. We know that we can get one of those because that's average people can do that. Give me a break, okay? All of the evidence that has been presented to us up to this point, it's overwhelming in my opinion. There is zero chance that Jeffrey Epstein was not working as an asset for intelligence, okay? In my opinion, there is zero chance that that wasn't occurring. Just take a look here. Who buys State Department buildings, right? Normal people don't have that kind of in. Normal people don't have that hook. Your realtor don't call you up and they're like, hey, Bobby, check this out, yo. Look what I got for you. I got a building that used to be owned by the Iranian Shah. Okay? Then the revolution happened, and now we got this building for sale. I want you to come down and take a look at it so you can buy it. It's not normal. Normal people don't get those phone calls. Jeffrey Epstein was on the inside, knew people, and inevitably that led to him coming into ownership of this property or coming into, leasing this property or whatever it may be. Epstein, in turn, sublet the building to Ivan Fisher, a well-known criminal defense attorney, for $20,000 a month, the Daily News reported. The U.S. government sued both Epstein and Fisher, claiming the sublet was illegal, and court records tie Shantz to the rental property. In a letter to the State Department in April 1996, according to court records reviewed by Yahoo Finance, Shantz wrote that his boss Epstein intended to renew the lease for the premises and signed off as Jeffrey A. Shantz, J. Epstein and Company, Incorporated, The Villard House, 457 Madison Avenue, New York, New York, 10002. Later that year in October, Shantz wrote that Fisher, the subletter of the property, asking for payment, court records show. Fisher was a prominent criminal defense attorney who represented clients in the Pizza Connection, a case involving a massive 1980s heroin bust in New York and heroin dealers in the French Connection trials. So Shantz was a lawyer that worked with organized crime, obviously. The Pizza Connection was huge heroin deal that just was a large ranging operation. So he was obviously working for some heavy hitters in organized crime. During Shantz's deposition, he said he had worked with Epstein since May of 1995 and that Epstein was a client of Gold and Wachtel, the firm that Indyke also worked for, according to public records. He clarified that Gold and Wachtel's work for Epstein involved corporate work and real estate matters, both residential and commercial. The lawsuit suggests that Epstein was connected to James Baker III, who was Secretary of State from 1989 to 1992 during the George H.W. Bush administration. At one point, according to court records, Shantz was asked, "Do you know how Mr. Epstein came to know Secretary of State James Baker?" To which he responded, "No." In Ivan Fisher's deposition in November 1997, he also noted that Mr. Shantz did all the talking for Mr. Epstein. The James Baker stuff is interesting because right here it tells you he was the Secretary of State from 1989 to 1992, and then all of a sudden Jeffrey Epstein gets to buy a building from the State Department. Kind of funny, huh? Kind of like how he ended up with that Austrian passport, huh? I wonder what Ronald Lauder had to do with that. The Financial Trust Company. In 2002, Citibank sued Epstein and his company, the Financial Trust Company, claiming they defaulted on a $20 million loan. Citibank claims in its suit that it pitched Epstein two $10 million investment opportunities and that he agreed to invest the money as long as the bank loaned him the amount. Epstein borrowed the money but later sued the bank claiming it defrauded him. Citibank's lawsuit that it fired back named two Epstein employees actively involved in dealing with Citibank on behalf of Epstein and FTC, New York-based lawyers Jeffrey A. Shantz and Darren K. Indyke. FTC and corporation documents also show that Indyke and Shantz were involved with some of his trusts, the New York Times reported. In the early 2000s, when Epstein was a financial advisor to Wexner, a staggering $88 million suddenly appeared in FTC's accounts, according to documents filed in St. Thomas in the Virgin Islands and obtained by the New York Times. Over the next few years, money was periodically withdrawn from the offshore entity, the Times found, and after a few years, the money was periodically withdrawn. The sender and the recipient of the $88 million is unclear. Oh, yeah, because that would work for any one of us. I'm sure that we would never get nailed with Title 31 or anything like that. You or me, we could do all $88 million offshore getting funneled out to every which way but loose. No big deal. You're not going to get in trouble for that, Bobby. Go ahead, keep it up. Yeah, right. We'd end up in some jail. We'd end up in the Supermax in Colorado. In Florence for something like this. I mean, it's the two-tier justice system is an absolute joke. It makes me sick. Right here it tells you that these people were much more than just a client and a lawyer relationship. Indyke is in neck deep, folks. Neck deep with what Jeffrey Epstein had going on. Attempts to reach both lawyers for this story were unsuccessful. The reports that Indyke and Shantz have hired criminal defense attorneys suggest that they are well aware that while Epstein is dead, prosecutions against his associates may not be over. Indeed, Manhattan U.S. Attorney Jeffrey S. Berman issued a statement shortly after Epstein's death confirming the investigation will continue. To those brave young women who have already come forward and to the many others who have yet to do so, the statement said, let me reiterate that we remain committed to standing for you, and our investigation of the conduct charged in the indictment, which included a conspiracy count, remains ongoing. Boy, it sure does, huh? It's been ongoing now for quite some time, Mr. Berman. You made that statement to these brave young women, and they certainly are that, and you have not followed through. How do you sleep at night? Honestly, Mr. Berman, how do you sleep at night knowing that justice has not prevailed in this case? Isn't that your whole entire job? Isn't that your whole entire gig, my man? To make sure that justice is applied equally? But here we are, a sex trafficking ring running around for decades right under your damn nose and your predecessor's nose. And nobody's in jail, nobody's in trouble. The only person that's in trouble, the only people that are in trouble are two lowly guards from the MCC. Those are the only people that you thought it was appropriate to slap with charges, with felony charges. You got to do a better job, Mr. Berman. You got to do a better job, sir, because you're the one person that can make this right. You're the one person as of right now that can kick in the door here and tell all of these people from Indyke on down that their time has come and that it's time for them to answer the hard questions. Because that's what we demand, Mr. Berman. I want to be very clear with you. We demand justice. We demand the pursuit of anybody involved with this criminal enterprise. We demand it. If you'd like to contact me, you can do that at bobbycapucci@protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI@protonmail.com. You can also find me on Twitter at BOBBY_CAPUCCI. Also, if you haven't checked it out yet, you can find my new podcast called COVID-19, the pandemic that changed everything, inside of this description box. I'll leave the link there, and if that's something you're interested in, you can go and check it out. All right, everybody, I will be back tomorrow with our usual daily drop and the morning update. All right, everybody, have a great night, and I will talk to you tomorrow.